Hi honeys, welcome to Books and Hauls with Michelle. In today's video, I'm going to go over the books that I read in the month of March. And I know March isn't quite over yet, but I feel like I have enough books to mention that the last book I read this month I'll just throw into April. Now before I get started on that, I just wanted to just take a moment and say, rest in peace, Beverly Cleary. She passed away this last week. She was 104, and she has changed so many of our lives as far as really enhancing our love of reading as children and she created characters that many of us have kept with us throughout our whole life. And I don't know that my childhood or my adult life would have been quite the same without her, because her books are the ones that really made me fall in love with reading. And it was also a nice bonding moment with my mom and myself, because she loved Beverly Cleary books when she was a child, and she read the first book in the Ramona series out loud to me when I was a little girl, and just really got me excited about learning to read by myself. And I just can't say enough about how much I love her books. And I know they mean a lot to a lot of other people as well. So I just wanted to give her a shout out. And just to give you a little bit of a backstory, I did read up on her. She went to UC Berkeley and University of Washington. She was not just a writer, but a librarian. And she had a husband that she was married to for 64 years. And she had twins, a boy and a girl. I think their names were Maurice and Marianne. And she was born in Oregon. She ended up living the final years of her life in California. Where was it? Carmel, I think it was what I read. And she was 104 when she passed away. So we definitely lost a legend. Now, speaking of another legend from my childhood, the first book that I read was Sweet Valley Confidential. And I hated it. I don't know if I just had expectations that were too high, because I loved Sweet Valley Twins, Sweet Valley High, SVU, Sweet Valley University so much. When I saw that this had come out, I thought, oh my gosh, why did nobody mention it? Now I know why, because it wasn't good. I mean, here it is 10 years later, and we know that the twins aren't talking and they're living on opposite sides of the country. And then when you find out why, it's like, okay, really? But then as it goes on, it's like all the characters in the book are just completely different people. And I don't know, maybe it's just me. I'm sure I've grown in certain ways and changed in certain small ways, but the content of my character as to who I am has kind of been the same since my personality formed as a small child. And it's just for every character in the book to just so completely change. I didn't like that. I didn't like having everything flip like that. I kind of felt like this series was the one thing in my life, especially growing up, when times, your hormones are all over the place, and, does that one boy at school like you, and that kind of thing. The one thing that felt like a constant was the characters in these books. And so to go back and read this and get excited and then find out that, oh, surprise, I changed every character like completely, I just didn't like it. So I actually put the book down on page 52 and did not finish reading it. One thing I will say that I like about the book, though, is it did reignite my passion for rereading Sweet Valley High. I'm on the hunt to get all the books from that series, or at least as many of them as I can, and reread them. And even if I don't end up rereading all of them, I want them in my future library. I give this book 1 star out of 5. Girl A. This was my book of the month selection last month. So or was it last month or the month before? You know what? I can't remember. What does it say on here? February. That was last month. Why does February seem 6 months ago? I'm not really sure, but it does. This book is about a lady named Lex, also known as Girl A. She was one of a group of children who were siblings who were so severely abused by their parents that the newspapers and the news referred to them as Girl A, Girl B, Boy B, so on and so forth. And she was Girl A, and her name is Lex. And Lex has moved on with her life as much as she can from such severe abuse. And then she gets a phone call that her mother has passed away in prison and has left this house where she sustained all this abuse to her and to her siblings. But she's executor of the estate. So of the house and some of the money that the mom had that she didn't know that she even had. So she goes back, she has to go back to the prison to collect her belongings and then to the house. And the book bounces around a lot. It goes from current time to recent time to the far past. And it kind of does it along with when she's having memories of things or thinking of things, but it bounces around so much it's hard to tell what's real and what is an illusion. I felt like there was so many childhood memories though that had nothing to do with forwarding the storyline, so that really kind of slowed the book down and confused me more. Like, why are we talking about this when it has nothing to do with the abuse she went through or the future in any way? Why are they mentioning this character who never comes up again? That kind of stuff. It was a really sad, honest take on child abuse or just abuse in general and how it might affect a person. But not just how it might affect them, but how it might affect them for the rest of their lives. It is really interesting to delve into the human mind and how we tend to block out or forget or be in denial about different things that happen in an effort to survive. If you have been abused and you're interested in reading about how people get through it or maybe how they don't get through it, you might like this book. It is a very heavy, dark read though, so be prepared if you're going to read it. It might be kind of triggering if you've gone through abuse. If you're trying to understand, I would really recommend it if you're trying to understand someone who's been abused, what the person's going through and maybe why they seem so confusing in certain ways. But I gave it 3 stars, and I gave it 3 stars because there was so much what I would call fluff in it where I could never, even after reading it, I don't know what the point was and having some of these things mentioned. And it was definitely confusing. I think that was part of something the author was aiming for, but I still didn't like how confusing it was. And I'm just all over the map with whether I like it or not. And so I just decided to go with three stars. It's like part of it I really liked, part of it I thought was healing, part of it I hated. Like, I'm just all over. So do I recommend it? I don't know. If it sounds good to you, maybe read it, but just be prepared that it's very hard to read emotionally. A Ring of Endless Light by Madeleine L'Engle. This book is about a teenager named Vicky who goes with her family to stay with her grandparents for the summer at the beach. Her grandfather appears to be close to passing away, and so that's why they're staying there with him. They want to help care for him. It was a book that changed my life as a teenager, a preteen, like age 12, I think was the first time I read it. And I wanted to reread it and figure out why. And I can think of quite a few reasons. One was the relationship that she has with her grandfather. I was really close with my grandfather as well, so I think that was a big part of it. 2, she absolutely loved writing poetry and expressing herself, which that's me. 3, she loved swimming, and she's got this, I don't want to reveal too much, but she really loves dolphins. And it's got kind of a sci-fi twist, but it's also, um, I don't know, the discussions in this book are really a little bit deeper than what you might normally find in books. They're more esoteric or philosophical or even scientific sometimes. So it's more mentally stimulating, I think, than a lot of the books that are out there. Just my opinion, but it was so beautifully written. And I just love the book. I think it's a wonderful book if you, especially if you want to escape life right now. There's no computers in this book, there's no cell phones in this book. It's just an escape. And with it taking place on the beach, in the sand, I think it'd be a wonderful book to read if you're getting ready for the summer, or maybe if you're on a vacation on the beach or something. I think it'd be a wonderful read for that. But this is a YA book, and it's absolutely wonderful. I give it 5 stars. And I'm going to read the next one in the series. It's a 5-book series. This is number 4. I'm going to read number 5 soon. So stay tuned for that. Later by Stephen King. Okay, this book, I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it or not. Like, I thought I did, but I wasn't sure. I really like Stephen King, but I like old school Stephen King. I like The Stand. I liked Needful Things. I like It. Um, I could go on and on, but there's a lot of older books that he wrote that I really liked. But the newer ones are kind of hit or miss for me, to the point where, now when I say newer, I mean the last 20 years. I have not read a lot of his newer books. And so I decided, well, I'm just going to listen to this on audiobook and we'll just see what happens. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much that I wanted to buy it and reread it again too. And not only was it a good book, but before I get into the book and what it was about and what I thought, the voice actor that did the voiceover was impeccable. He was so good. I would be shocked if he doesn't win awards for how well he did reading this book. It was just amazing. And I could not stop listening to it. Not just because of the story, but the voice actor. He was so good. So good for this book. Later is about a boy named Jamie, who, it's a coming of age story. It starts out when he's very young, and it goes up until he's, I think, a teenager, if I remember correctly. And he's got a mom who's a single mom, and the two of them, I love their relationship. You know, they could have a better relationship, but it certainly could be worse. And she's there. She's trying to provide a good future for her child. And it's a really good book in that way. Also, her mom has a girlfriend named Liz. So on the cover here, this is Jamie and this is Liz. Now, Jamie has a gift. It's kind of like the Sixth Sense in the way that Jamie can see and talk to dead people. However, there's a twist. He discovers very quickly that these dead people that he speaks to cannot lie to him. This creates an entire whirlwind of drama for him when people discover that he has this gift, wanting to find out different things from dead people. And you can only imagine how far that could go eventually. And that's all I want to say about it, because I don't want to spoil anything. But it was really good. It felt like old school Stephen King, except instead of being 1,000 pages long, this book was 248 pages long. Although I was kind of wishing it was 1,000 pages long, because I wanted to keep reading. I did not want it to end, and it ended. I couldn't put it down. There was a big shock for me, maybe 2. And this is one of the hard case crime books by Stephen King, which, as I mentioned, I haven't read anything of his in so long. I haven't read the other ones. It makes me kind of want to read them. Let me know if you've read them, what you thought of the other hard crime novels that he wrote. Are they worth reading? I think it's The Colorado Kid and Joyland are the other 2. But this one, even if you don't like Stephen King, I think you would like this one. It's a really good thriller. And I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. How could you not when you love a book that much? This was a good month for me. I had some solid 5-star books, which is wonderful. Saving Fish from Drowning. I had asked you guys to help me pick my TBR for March, and this was the winner. There was a second place book, and I didn't have a chance to get to it. I hope to get to it next month. We'll see. I'm kind of getting to the point, though, where I think I don't want to plan what I read each month to the degree that I have been, because it takes some of the joy of reading out of it. Sometimes I want to read a book because I feel like I want to read that book, and I keep, nope, that's the next one in the schedule, and it's making me kind of read things slower and like, oh, I'm not in the mood for that or whatever. It's like watching a sci-fi movie when all you really want is to watch a comedy. Like, it just doesn't feel right. But if you're in a sci-fi mood, it's the best thing ever. I savored this book. I read it very slowly. I read physically most of it. I did listen to some of the audiobook though, and this audiobook, it was quite a treat. The audiobook was done by the author, Amy Tan, which was actually kind of cool. This book is about a lady named Bibi who passes away. And the whole book is pretty much coming from her perspective. And she had planned a trip before she passed away to go to Burma with 11 of her friends. Well, they decide to go anyway, so she travels with them to Burma and is trying to help keep them safe as a ghost. And it just felt like the premise of the book sounds wonderful, but actually reading it, I felt like there was holes in it. I felt like there was too many friends. I couldn't keep track of who was who or which storyline belonged to who. 11 people, that was just too many for me personally. I would have really enjoyed it more, I think, if there was less friends. So I liked it. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. And out of the Amy Tan books I have read, this is probably my least favorite one. I'm not saying I didn't like it. I'm not saying there weren't good points. It just didn't hit certain heartstrings the way so many of her books does for me. Sorry, I had to pause that for a minute. Apparently, uh, someone downstairs has a flooded bathroom and they're trying to figure out the source, but it's not us, but that we had people knocking on the door needing to come look at our bathroom. Anyway, the last book that I read um, was Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. Oh my gosh. Now, that one, I was only able to listen to the audiobook version. I'm going to be doing a book review specifically on that one book tomorrow. So if you want to hear what happened and all that stuff, be sure to tune in. I'm going to give a lot more information about the book in that video. But what I will say about it in this video was it was so good. I couldn't stop listening. I think I went through the whole book in one day, if that. Same with Stephen King's later. They both, I just couldn't stop. They were so good. And I was excited because, to be honest, it's been a while since I've had anything excite me like that. I've been reading so many books that are just kind of drawn out and slow and really long, and it's just nice to read books that you can't put down. So every Vow You Break is about a lady named Abigail. She has a one night stand with this guy, okay, and she marries someone else, and the one night stand guy shows up on her honeymoon, and drama ensues. But it's a scary book. It scared me, and it was so good. I think it's funny. So this month, I give this book 5 stars. I gave later 5 stars, and those two books will probably be two of my book of the years. Like out of my top 10 favorite books of the year, I'd be shocked if they weren't on that list. So March was a wonderful reading month for me. I just loved the books that I was able to read this month. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. I'm going to be talking more in depth about what I thought of every Vow You Break. Just let me know if there's any books that you've read lately that you just could not put down. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you. Bye.